Blake, how do you score in baseball?
I think it's by the number of hot dogs you can shove in your mouth while screaming, "Play ball!"
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your co-host, Blake Hodges, a man who discovered there is no limit to the amount of hot dogs you can eat on the company credit card, and I'm here with the person who pays for those hot dog bills, Toby Walters.
So when you said bowl, that was your attempt to imagine you had hot dogs in your mouth while you're saying that?
Toby, I've got 5 hot dogs in my mouth right now.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, this is why your cheeks are so fat.
Such a big mouth, Toby. I can talk completely coherently with 5 hot dogs in my mouth.
This is so random. So we're going to talk about going to a baseball game the night before Amplio, FILO, and we saw our buddies from Amplio. I had this dream last night. I don't remember the context of dream at all, but I remember my wife was in the dream, and I thought to myself, is my wife's conscience in my dream? Is like she over there in the bed next to me dreaming as well, and like our dreams have intersected? And I said, I'm going to say something totally random, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow and see if you were actually here. And so I said, baseball music.
And did she remember it the next day?
So we talked about it this morning, and I told her about this, and she's like, yeah, no, I was not there. I don't know anything about this.
Isn't it funny the stuff your brain can tell you when you're sleeping?
Crazy. And so I really think I had this baseball game on the brain that, so Blake, how many baseball games have you been to in your life?
I went to one in New York when I was like 5th grade, 250 pounds. And then I went to another. I went to the Nashville Sounds game, which was fun. It was like $15 to sit on the floor seats. But I mean, it's a minor league game. So this is my 3rd.
I really like minor league games. They're just kind of fun and inconsequential and cheap, as you said.
So cheap.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of fun to me. I don't know any different.
But if anybody didn't know, there is like a celebrity intersection that, share the same birthday, like it's a super day. So May 6th is a super day with you and Zach Brady from D&B. You share the same birthday.
I appreciate that it was a super day. I just thought I was in Zach Brady's shadow, which, happy to be there because Zach's one of the funniest, probably the funniest guy in church production.
He is definitely in the top echelon of humorous. Like, he is just quick.
If we were doing a roast in church production, he'd be on the docket. He'd be doing one of the roastings.
Yes. So we all went to the Cubs game the night before FILO, not Amplio, but FILO. And it was a great time. I've been to the Cubs to Wrigley Field once in my life. And like, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I can appreciate the history.
I couldn't tell you weren't a huge baseball fan by the amount of times you, me, and Jared took a walk around the stadium.
So the three of us, Jared is our incredibly handsome sales director, and like after 3 innings, we're like, do we want to walk around a bit and see what we see? Because we're bored.
Also, Jared had lost his wallet at the very beginning of the night, and I'd called Jared's my work husband, so I got to take care of him. So I call the customer service people, and they're like, yeah, we don't have a wallet. We look all around, and so now we're just walking around kind of bummed.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a stadium with tens of thousands of people and you discover your wallet is missing. Now, I thought he had dropped it in the car. I figured it slid out of his pocket in the car, and that was the most likely spot because he hadn't seen it since earlier that day.
See, I knew he had it because I had stolen it myself, so I could be his hero when I found it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I thought it had fallen out of his pocket.
And so we're walking to I wanted ice cream, and Jared's like, well, let me just check Lost and Found. And so we see Lost and Found is right near our section, and what happens, Blake?
Some loving soul returned this wallet, even with the cash in it. I mean, there was $3K in that wallet, and they still, I'm just kidding.
Do you think there are $1,000 bills?
Well, I mean, drug money's got to get passed somehow.
Blake, there actually used to be $1,000 bills. They're not
really?
Yeah, they're not in circulation anymore, but they used to exist.
I bet they on the real. I bet they cut that down because of illegal payments.
Probably
made it a lot. It's a lot harder to carry that much cash.
Yeah,
but someone returned his wallet.
So we had a lot of our friends there. D&B was there. Jeff and Spencer from MXU were there. Who else was there? Stephen Aruda, Mike Rentals. Like, it was kind of an all-star comedy jam. It probably was a roast. And you didn't realize that we were roasting you, Blake.
Oh, Toby, that's my whole existence. I'm still a live pod pitch here. I'm still trying to get us to do a church production roast at some point. Mm-hmm. Maybe we shouldn't say that out loud, though. Maybe someone will take that idea. But I think that
nobody else could pull it off, though.
Let's
be realistic, except for Zach Brady.
We need to do a church production roast. That would be hysterical.
Yeah. And so we left around the 6th or 7th inning because we finally gave up on baseball. And
We had already eaten 7 hot dogs.
And apparently after we left, Zach Brady decided to heckle the first baseman or the pinch runner or something like that. And do you remember the story? The quarterback of the baseball team, yes. So he, I think a pinch runner came up do you know what a pinch runner is, Blake?
Toby, not on my life.
It's like if you all of a sudden can't hack it on the podcast and I pull Jared in to sit in your seat, I'm like, he's a pinch runner. We're putting him in a pinch because you can't do your job.
I see.
And so the pinch runner comes up and Zach says, well, I'm going to see if this guy has a sister. What? I'm like, Zach. But he didn't have a sister, but he had an ex-girlfriend who was like an Instagram model. And so I think the girlfriend's name was Alex or something. And so Zach's just heckling the runner with, hey, your girlfriend called Alex. She wants to get back together. It was just great comedic nonsense.
Do you think he could hear him?
We weren't that far away from first base, and Zach's got a big voice. He's got those D&B loudspeakers installed into his vocal cords.
That would be something.
Yeah. And so it's quite possible as we go to the live episode of FILO that Zach Brady is somewhere in the background, because that background ain't quiet.
Still heckling that first baseman.
Introducing the Senior Central Lighting Leader at Life Church and Brandon Kahn's stunt double, Caleb Darago.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Caleb, is your last name Darago?
Darago. So the way I always tell people to do it is dare you go, Darago. It's kind of like a nice play on
Blake,
words.
you're trying to do like derogatory, Darago.
Yeah. Or if it's like Ivan Dragos from, what is that, the Rocky movies?
Yeah, Rocky 4.
Yeah.
I was trying to cast him into Game of Thrones.
Darago.
Darago.
Okay, we got
All right. Dare I go right to the 5 Truths and a Lie?
Well, do we need to give any context that why it's so noisy in the background?
I trust us to have given it in the intro.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Great. So note to future self, please give context to around why it's so
I love how Toby's
noisy.
saying that as if he's ever listened to a single recording that we've ever done before
Siri,
it went
please
out.
remind me
Okay.
to...
All right. I'm turning this mic
My
off.
watch just went up. Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 on 5 Truths and a Lie here on the Church Gear Podcast. I have taught over 250 people how to shoot archery.
Do you shoot archery?
Does he look like a killer?
A little bit. He has killer good looks, so...
Okay. Number 2, I left home 2 weeks after high school and moved across the country to an unknown state to start my production career.
That just sounds like a Tuesday for production people.
Also, what's an unknown state? Like, did he not know the state he would be in when he got there?
No, I think he discovered the state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Number 3, I have been L1 TD on 5 different mid-sized tours.
Okay, what's an L1 TD, Blake?
That is a droid on Star Wars.
Correct.
Number 4, I have put together and designed lighting for a Disney Frozen production.
I've taken my daughter to a Disney Frozen, like Disney Frozen on Ice.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago, but...
Let those stories and references go. Number 5, my first job I ever held was at a place named Wet and Wild.
Blake, can you say that on this podcast?
I definitely just got bleeped saying Wet and Wild.
So that's either a, like a water park, or that's
Nope.
straight up an adult entertainment venue.
Yeah, that sounds like Justin Firesheets' old place of employment. Number 6, I have evacuated an entire hotel of people at 6 a.m. from farting. No, he just said evacuated. I added the farting.
So it sounds like he evacuated them, not like he evacuated with them. That's interesting.
So then he died.
Oh, this is a reanimated version.
We're
of
talking
Caleb.
to the AI
my
version.
Android.
That's true.
All right.
Okay, Blake, are you, do you have I'll let you go first on this one.
I don't feel good about a single one of these.
I don't either.
I'm going to say it's number 4. I put together and designed lighting for Disney Frozen production, and he didn't do that.
Okay, I'm going to go with the archery statement. I'm going to say that he is actually not good at archery at all, and so we'll find out.
Well, man, neither of those are accurate.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, neither of those are accurate. So I have actually not been the L1 or TD on any mid-sized tours or any tour period.
Well, this is deeply unfortunate, Blake. We both lost. What should our punishment be?
I think maybe, this is Todd Elliott, by the way. I think that maybe you should get a piggyback ride around this little area here.
Okay, do I have to give Blake the piggyback or vice versa?
I think you guys could work it out.
Okay. Okay, after this pod, Blake, you're giving me a piggyback ride to the car.
I don't think I can do this, guys. My back is gonna break. I'd much rather carry Todd. I've been carrying Toby's for all these years.
See what I have to put up with, Todd?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Caleb. Well, you fooled us. So you've never been the L1 TD on any tours?
I have not been L1 or TD on any tour.
Okay, why are you even qualified to be on this podcast,
That's
Caleb?
really a great question.
I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Wait, we have to qualify to be on this podcast?
Well, the guest does, not us as the hosts.
Good.
Okay,
Good.
So apparently you know how to shoot archery?
Yes.
Are you Robin Hood?
So I actually am a huge archery hunter. I've been on many different hunts over the years. And then back in my former life when I lived in Arizona, my father and I had a course where we would teach like school-age children how to shoot a bow and just hunt and do different things. We were sponsored by Arizona Game and Fish. And so was super into hunting and shooting. And it was right around when Hunger Games came out. So it was like perfectly timed to be able to do
I was just about to
archery.
say, would kids come to you before they get cast in the Hunger Games to survive?
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time with it.
Okay, so luckily you had these archery skills because apparently you moved to an unknown state. Like, did you discover new land?
No, so I just never been to Oklahoma, so I figured it's, unknown state, don't know anybody there. Probably could have done better verbiage there. Didn't have our proofreaders read over that before I sent it, so.
I'm thinking a lot of our listeners have thinking to themselves, I've never been to Oklahoma either.
Yeah, it's a pretty common place to fly over. We call it a flyover state.
Yeah.
But it's actually, I love it. I've been there for a decade now, and met my wife, have kids now, the whole nine.
And is there an opportunity to shoot things with your bow and arrow?
There is. So funny enough, I'm married into my father-in-law being the chief of wildlife in Oklahoma. So
In the whole state?
yeah, he's on the same level as 4 other people, but yeah, he's one of the top heads at at Oklahoma Game and Fish.
Blake, have you ever read The Most Dangerous Game?
Toby, I starred in the most dangerous game. I am the most dangerous man.
So I'm wondering if we can release Blake into Oklahoma as an animal to hunt.
Oh, listen, let's do this.
And
I'm
then
ready.
Caleb can sanction this through his father-in-law and get a community together to hunt you down.
Hang on. What if it's a bunch of people come after us and it's Caleb and me versus them? I'll take those odds.
If you just get Caleb, you feel...
We might be able to do it.
And
Yeah.
I get a crossbow. I get
A crossbow? All
Yes.
right. All right.
And tell us about Wet and Wild without getting yourself into any more trouble on this
Yeah.
podcast.
So it was a water park in Phoenix,
see?
Arizona.
Okay.
I started off as janitorial staff and worked my way up to senior janitorial staff. So it was great. Taught me how to work hard through heat without being able to go in water. It was the worst job. But
Blake, you used to be a janitor.
I did. It was my favorite job I've ever had. I miss it greatly compared to my current one.
So how come Caleb went from janitor to successful lighting designer and you went from janitor to...
Toby's pet.
Yeah.
You know, what can I say? Not all of us have the dashing good looks of Caleb Darago with that great name.
That's true.
You know? I mean, he's straight out of Game of Thrones. I'm straight out of Smyrna.
Yes.
Caleb, you're straight out of your FILO session. Tell us about what you're teaching here. Maybe some of your favorite points from it.
yeah, so taught on just what does it look like to use next generation technology in the church. So I covered 3 different topics: AR, XR, and virtual reality, so VR. And we went through, hey, Life Church has an augmented reality system. How do we use it? What do we use it for? What's our use cases? What's the vision behind it? Talked a little bit about what the difference between AR and XR is as far as the technologies, what are potential use cases in the church, and then talked a little bit about, we've done some virtual reality stuff as the church. So we had an AltSpace VR before that got shut down campus. And so just shared some stories and the why and the vision behind that.
Can you give us quick snapshots of what is AR, XR, VR?
Yeah, so AR is augmented reality. It is objects that are rendering in the foreground of your image, but real-time compositing. So you get the 3D space of an object. So you can do essentially virtual props that mimic realistic size. You just have to physically sell the illusion of scale by walking around it like you would if it was physically in the room. XR blends AR and background elements with LED wall, LED flooring, LED ceiling. And so that's similar to how, if you're a Star Wars fan, everyone's watched The Mandalorian. And so most of the virtual production environment is heading towards XR studios, where you can do both foreground, background, and tangibles all in the same space. And then virtual reality being the fully immersive headsets like your Apple Vision Pro and your Oculus. So
Do you have any churches out there that you know specifically, like they're doing one or all of those things really well, that you're looking to as an influence and kind of copying some of that stuff?
So I have not personally connected with any other churches that are doing it. We, in 2019, had upgraded our broadcast facility, moved venues, did a whole building renovation. And in 2019, our leadership, because I wasn't even on our broadcast team at the time, our leadership came in with a high vision piece of like, hey, what's something that's cutting edge technology that we want to try out and experiment in and figure out, hey, is there a practical use case for this inside the church? And we're going to resource and equip that. And so we got to go through all of the early adoption, fun, growing pains of technology and learning, oh, this actually doesn't work, and we underspec this, and we need to change out this component. We spent 3.5 years doing that journey to get to our first actual use case, and then we've used it a couple times since then. But it's still pretty lengthy process to make the assets for that to then incorporate into a message. And Pastor Craig's not huge on like props teaching style, and so the use cases for us are very specific. But yeah, we've gotten to learn all about the differences between it and what not to do. So
I can't remember what it was, but I feel like I saw a quick demo or a snapshot of Life Church, like a virtual service that you guys did.
Yeah.
Was that just sort of like you're testing something out, or are you guys still doing a virtual service?
So that was our VR church. It was in a space called Alt Space VR. It had gotten shut down, so that platform no longer exists. It was within Oculus, so Facebook's version of virtual reality headsets. But we had a full virtual campus. We had a couple hundred people attending at the peak of it on a monthly basis, and then we had over 20 people give their lives to Christ in that space. And it was during COVID, at the peak of isolation, when people were looking for community. And so we were like, hey, there's a group of people gathering here. Let's be a light in that area and try something that reaches people. And so our church online attendance was actually given the opportunity to go there, and you could do it on web too if you didn't have a headset.
Okay.
But taking what was one of our campuses, building a virtual environment for it, and then putting like fun games and lobby things and all the stuff in it like you would expect when you walk into one of our buildings, but even staffing it similarly, where there's host team people that are greeting you at the door and conversations around small groups and creating that community with people who were in a digital space. So it was fun. It doesn't exist now because the platform's gone, but at Life Church, we're always trying to go further and further and go just, hey, where are people congregating? How can we use this as an opportunity to reach people in places that they're lost?
Yeah. So when you left Arizona with your bow and arrow on your back, did you go directly to Life Church? Is that where you've been your entire adult career?
My entire adult career has been
His
at Life
entire
Church.
life.
My entire life, really. I moved away from home 2 weeks after high school and interned for 1.5 years, and then came on staff as a full-time staff member. I've had like 6 or 7 different titles since then, but consistently doing lighting and video stuff throughout it.
What got you into lighting in the beginning? Was there a moment where you're like, ooh, lights?
Man, the first memory I have, period, of going, wow, production is cool, just production in general, was growing up. My grandparents took me to a Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert.
Ooh, yeah.
And we sat second row, and I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then figured out how to integrate that into a career now.
Yeah. Blake, who's the Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
They are an orchestra in the Trans of the Siberian, and they sound awesome during Christmas time.
That's better than I thought you would do, Blake.
Everyone's heard their Carol of the Bells.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm proud of you, Blake. You knew a reference to something in pop culture.
Have I ever told? I know choir stuff, Toby. I bribed my way into choir into high school.
Can you sing a little bit for us right now?
Remember how I bribed my way in there? I did not earn my way in there.
Caleb, how long have you been in your current role?
So I've been in my lighting leadership role for about 9 months now. And then I was on broadcast from 2020 until that role. And then prior to that, I was one of our AVL support technicians. And so overseeing campus maintenance life cycles, just if a ticket comes in on a weekend, hey, help, I need help with my projector. I'm the one on the other side of the chat or the phone answering and helping support that. So
in your current role, I mean, Life Church has, 4,000 campuses at this point or pretty close to it. Are you, how do you approach lighting design as the, senior director? Are you creating lighting scenes and then they're going out to every campus? You creating just sort of guidelines? Are you all on the same page as far as across your campuses?
Yeah, right now, there's kind of 2 different lanes that I'm operating in right now. One, I'm growing in pastoral span of care. So I've got 16 lighting contractors that are reporting to me and their worship pastors at each of their individual locations. And so they handle the weekly programming responsibilities for all 45 locations. There's a guy that does 12 campuses and then a couple that do 1. And so depending on their skill set and their capacity, that looks dramatically different. We're still on 2 different platforms. So we use, or technically 3, we use MA2 on MA3 light consoles at both of our broadcast locations, so running mode 2. We have 26 locations that are still on Jans Vista. And then we have the rest of our locations that are on MA3 on PC, and we started that conversion back in 2019. And so there's a wide plethora of different systems, and as much as we like to try and standardize it, there's the real life cycle cost of it's expensive to replace equipment on a routine basis. And so we try to maximize our investments into that. And so there's some campuses that have equipment that's approaching a decade old. And so that deems some nuance to how the programming happens, which is why having multiple programmers is great. And then on the other side of my role where I'm heavily focusing is we're just now getting to the point where we're talking about equipment life cycles. How does it roll over? What do we do for forecasting for the future? Just like a parking lot needs resurfaced, we got to buy new technology, and there's a cost of ownership and a cost of business to it. And so how do we responsibly steward those funds and the attenders' tithes to make those systems as effective and efficient as possible, but while still maximizing our creative side? So there's the 2 halves to my role that I'm sitting in right now, is really just going for the first time of creating a culture around what does Life Church as a lighting programming look like, and just even getting to know the people better that have been doing it for years. And then on the other side, the technological piece to it. So
what's kind of your philosophy of design as far as, you're let's create a big show, or let's just serve what the environment's going to do. Let's strip it down and keep it simple. Do you guys, how does that work with Life Church right now?
Yeah. So historically, it's been all over the place, kind of do what you want to locationally. And we're still somewhat there. I'm working on coaching a couple of my programmers that, hey, less is actually more. And then there's a couple of places where I'm also encouraging, hey, the lights can run a sine wave effect. You don't have to have them static the whole service. And so there's nuance to it depending on who the programmer is and what stage of life they're in. I find my younger programmers have a harder time with restraint on just not hitting the strobe button, because it's this is cool and look what I can do. And then on the flip side, like there's some people that thankfully were on the other side of it, but they were phoning it in for a little bit because there was no oversight. And so there's both sides of the spectrum there as far as programming goes. And so I'm trying to find that sweet spot right in the middle of like, we're in a healthy balance where it's like when we need to do more, we can do more and we have the technology to support it. But what does our week to week need to look like as to, hey, it's not flash and trash all the time. So
Caleb, how do I keep Toby from phoning it in? Because he's been phoning it in for a while. I mean, you just said you found a way to fix that.
it's a lot of leadership, a lot of conversation, a lot of grace.
I don't have any grace or leadership, so we'll keep phoning it in.
Blake, I'm going to text it in. So look for that message real quick, and anybody has a job out there, Blake will be searching.
I've just been fired by myself.
Do you at least get a voicemail, or is it just like missed phone calls?
Nah, it's like that passive-aggressive thing where you don't want to break up with somebody like over voicemail or talk to them. You just send them a text. It's just easier, right?
Toby, hearing you say you're breaking up with me is weird because that means we are in a relationship. So let's move this interview along from that point.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a slight curveball, but I think you can handle it as a lighting director. Let's talk real quick about lights in the eyes of the audience, because I find myself in the audience, and now my church has gotten a lot better at this. When I sit on the floor, I don't have lights piercing my eyeballs anymore, but I sat in the balcony a couple weeks ago, and they still landed on my eyes, so I'm wondering, like, do designers, like, what's your approach with lights in the eyes of the audience, and then do you need to be aware of, like, every seat in the room?
Yeah, so it's a large balance for us. The thing we do at our satellite locations is put lights in that aren't at the level where it will fully blind you if it's at full. And so we kind of force some restraint there as to, hey, you don't have enough horsepower to actually cause ocular damage. But it's still a balance of, like, there's some campuses that their leadership, like, because we push a lot of decisions down to the local campus. And so there's some campuses where it's like, there's a moratorium on, like, you do not hit the audience with lights. It's off. It moves, or it doesn't move in black up to top. And that's how we do it. And then there's some other ones where it's like, hey, I'm okay with crowd scanning. And so because we're so geographically spread out and demographically spread out, it depends on the area that we're in and what's appropriate for that area. There's some areas that we're in that, like, they haven't seen a church that's anything like Life Church, where there's even moving lights in the auditorium. And then there's some areas where it's like, hey, that campus has been there for a lot longer. And so the approach and style that we even program at those locations is slightly different, just based on even exposure to, like, kind of what Life Church is. But there's no, like, hard and fast rule of nothing there. For broadcast, most of the time we prioritize camera because it's a larger audience for our live experience. And then we will strip some stuff back away once we're out of that recorded service, to keep some of those higher powered fixtures out of audiences' eyes. So, like, Christmas was a perfect example for us. There was a B stage, like, right in front of the camera at front of house, but I needed a wide gobo with a prism on it to, like, really hit this thing. And it was pretty harsh as the LD standing at front of house going, yeah, this looks really good on camera. We're getting exactly the lens flares we need. But following that service, we made the changes to get that out of the audience's eyes and lit it in a different way so that it would still look good for in-room, but it wasn't blinding people. And so always thinking about, hey, what's that first-time person that's walking into your building going to experience? Is it going to be inviting, or are you going to push them away? And so if the answer is push them away, then, hey, let's make some changes or show some different restraints in order to create a welcoming environment.
And for LDs, if they're trying to keep the lights out of the audience's eyes and they're sitting at front of house or where the lighting is, and they're looking at the design and they're like, the lights aren't hitting my eyes, I'm good. How can they be aware of seats that are very differently placed and lights still might be hitting those people's eyes?
walk the room. Just like an audio engineer, you'll see them a lot of times walk around with their iPad and check out spots in the room from a mix perspective. Walk the room, be aware of it. If you're on MA, I'd encourage you to create a virtual model of your room and actually like have your seating plot in there, because you're going to be able to do a bird's eye view real quick in 3D and know, hey, I'm in the danger zone here. And so whatever tools you can use that help give you that awareness, or even if it's just walking around, do that so that you know, hey, this is going to be a problem for this section. And if you're not talking with your worship pastor or your church leadership as to what the approach is, do you want to crowd scan, do you not, then you have to have those conversations, because they're most likely going to have an opinion on it, and we're responsible for listening to that and helping achieve the church's vision as well. It's not just about us.
Toby, what I just heard is you can make the live stream look good if you're willing to buy LASIK for everyone in the front row.
Blake, you and I are going to start a punk band, and we're going to call it Ocular Damage. And where our whole bit will be just blinding the audience so they won't see how terrible our music is.
I love that they're so blind they can't even see the music, because you normally hear music, but you're so blind you can't even see it.
One of my LD's handles is blinding people for Jesus, and I think it's comical.
Yeah.
Shout out Joshua Leisure.
Blinded by Life Church?
Blinded by the Life.
Instead of blinded by the lights.
There's something there. We're close. Okay, Caleb. So obviously, Pastor Craig, one of the most influential leadership thinkers out there. We like to assume that, therefore, you have a very, well thought out and well designed leadership structure in your production team. Maybe you do. Maybe there's some struggles, but just talk to us about your team design. How does that work for you and your team and developing people, and give us a little insight.
Me and my team is me, myself, and I. I am one of one as far as lighting staff goes for the church.
Do you have to give yourself a review?
Yeah, it's a weird process because I'm really hard on myself, and then on the leadership side, I'm really positive. I'm like, you did so great, buddy.
And here is a $10,000 raise to you from me.
Yeah, if only that's how it works. But no, so I sit technically underneath our broadcast team, but I lead all of our campus programmers. And so even though I don't technically on a dotted line lead anybody, my whole role exists for pastoral span of care first and foremost before I'm responsible for product. And so my heart is that I am pastoring my people. Like last year, literally 2 weeks into the role, one of my programmers got in a significant car accident and broke his arm, broke his leg, had all sorts of physical trauma. And so immediately my role was, 1, are you okay? 2, what do you need? But then 3, now I have 5 locations that don't have a programmer for who knows how long. And thankfully he was able to come back eventually. But that's what I was able to step in and provide, was those campuses weren't just, sorry, you're out of luck, you got no backup plan, to really go, hey, okay, LDs that I'm in community with, one of our brothers is hurt, let's help him out. But then 2, who wants to step up? And we created a rotating schedule of this LD is going to take this campus, this one's going to take this, you got the worship night, and we all worked off his file, and we made it work for a couple months until he could get back in the saddle and keep going. And so really that pastoral span of care is the first and foremost piece for me, is to man, ministry's messy. We all have lives. It's not just programming lights. It's no, there's ebbs and flows to everybody's season. And so how do you pastor people through that and just really understand that, hey, while there's a product that we're responsible for at the end of the day, how are you doing as a person, and how's your walk with Christ first? And so that's my main leadership piece, is that, and then that's touching all of our campuses.
And Warren actually gave us permission to do your review here on the podcast.
Great.
So he gave us some talking points, but honestly, it was so much better than Blake's review that I was like, I don't want to embarrass the guy.
Toby, what does redacted mean? I'm looking at my notes. It says his salary's been redacted.
It's what I love about Blake is he wants to be the best at every single thing he ever touches. And so he'll go into a review and he's like, all right, Toby, tell me how I can get 10 out of 10 on everything. I'm like, Blake, I don't give 10s on anything because that means you have nowhere left to grow.
Which also means if I can't get a 10, I'm doing a 0 and everything for 2024.
So is your scale a 0, a 5, and a 10? It's 3 points of feedback.
This is tough. How meta do we want to get? I just think if a 10 can't be achieved, then make it a 9, make it an 8. Like, I can hit a 10 that year and then raise the bar for the next year. You know what I mean? Like, let's be 10s every year and then just raise the bar at the end of the year.
Or just go classic rock, turn it to 11, baby.
Turn it to 11. That's
Yeah.
what that means.
And Blake, if you're actually performing at a 6, do you want to hear a 6 or do you want me to lie to you and say, yeah, you're at a 9?
I don't want to just hear a 6. I want you to kind of hit me on the back and tell me I have a 6 and be like, be better. That will motivate me and scare me.
I mean, generally your face is at a 4, but your performance is somewhere in a solid 8.
How about this? If I get below a 6, Caleb gets to, what was it? Greatest man, most dangerous man me in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Hunt you down with a bow and arrow in Oklahoma.
Yes. Also, would you rather be shot in the face with lights or with Caleb with a bow and arrow? That's what I've been wondering.
I'd prefer lighting.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Less bloodshed.
Aren't there lights that are so powerful that they can light things on fire if they're at full lumen?
We had a campus almost do that once. They almost set a curtain on fire. It was during a Christmas rental. They learned not to park a Claypacky Mythos rental on a scenic curtain that was 3 feet away. It was great. That was non-fire retardant.
Blake, are you non-fire retardant?
Nah, man, because I'm always blazing.
Let's shine the light on let's just say your torso. Let's not be mean to your face and see if it lights your shirt on fire.
I've heard my torso can take anything, so
I mean, it sounds like a disaster to me.
you know what would be a disaster is something happening wrong in church production. So, Caleb, do you have any moments where everything has gone wrong? How did you handle it? Or, knowing you, looking at this dashingly good face, I bet he averted the disaster, but it almost happened. So that's just as good of a story.
Yeah. Over the years, we've seen our fair share of production disasters. Like week 2 of me being an intern, we switched over from analog to Dante. And, we wired it wrong. And so we took down the PA.
Is that important?
Right before doors. I have never seen so many techs run around. And I was so green that I was like, I'm just going to stand in the back corner somewhere and watch this go down. And now we joke about it. But man, last year at our youth event, we made a very great design decision to put the Furman at toe kicking level for all of the front of house consoles. And so
all right, it's now hitting me. I heard token. He said toe kicking, so he's about to turn off all of the audio.
So it was right at shoe level. So if you're sitting or standing, you can flip that nice big red Furman switch off with your toes. And so while it wasn't me that took it down, one of the people that I was responsible for leading took it down. And so we lost the PA in the middle of like Pastor Craig's Bring It Home sermon point to our entire youth group. And it took about a minute and a half to come back up because it took out all of the Dante network, took out the lighting console. Luckily, battery floated it. But it was a fun time. And needless to say, that Furman is still in place. So,
is there not some sort of dummy cover over it?
No, we still have to move that. I actually probably should go home and fix that before Warren finds out that we haven't moved that.
And me being such a big fan of Mexican food, is there any Mexican food related disaster stories that you have as well?
That is the most random thing you've said in a while.
Mexican food related disaster stories.
Maybe chips and salsa?
Oh, are you queuing him up for something you already know?
Man.
Did Warren Davis reach out to us?
Set me up with one? Did I?
I thought you set yourself up with one.
Up for one?
He doesn't even remember. He set us up.
I don't even remember. I set you guys up for a disaster here on the podcast.
Was there a COVID-related disaster for your team centered around chips and salsa?
Yes, I forgot about the story.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Another intern
I'm not
story.
going crazy.
Another intern story. I forgot about this one. It's been a long day. We traveled yesterday.
It's true.
So right before the 25th anniversary of the church, we were getting a new intern. It was his first week. It was right after Christmas break, right in the height of COVID. Good times. So we take him out to Buffalo Wild Wings. We go get some chicken, some fries, as you do. And we ordered chips and salsa for the table. What he forgot to tell us or mention or even like give any hint at was that he'd been feeling sick for 3 days. And then after that lunch, he went and got COVID tested and tested positive. So our entire broadcast production crew all was at lunch with him. And our policy at the time was you quarantine for 2 weeks after an exposure. So on the 25th anniversary of the church, right at like the height of when we were prepping for it, all of our production crew got sent home and we all isolated and had to figure out how to remotely support and program that. That same weekend, our MA decided to take a dump. And so I had to dry rent a backup console because I couldn't get on site to fix the thing. Luckily, we had a backup file of everything that was already pre-programmed. But it was just one of those weekends where you're sitting at home watching a disaster unfold, and you're like, I can't fix this right now. But service went off without a hitch. So,
Toby, who knew you had to put a diaper on Grandma?
That's true, because Grandma would take a dump, apparently.
She took a big dump.
Well, Caleb, I'd love for you to dump some knowledge on us in the form of a tech takeaway. What would you say that would make everyone's Sundays a little better, a little easier, a little nicer?
Man, my tech takeaway actually has nothing to do with technology. It has to do with people.
Gasp.
The people that you're leading are the most important thing that you steward out of all of your technology, out of everything you do. And that should be your first job if you're working in ministry, period, is pastor first. And so span of care, know your people, figure out, hey, what are they doing in their personal life before you ever ask anything of them from a technological side or a working side. Like, focus solely on the ministry aspect because that's what we're all here to do. Technology will do what technology does. It always is changing. You're always going to have some other system or some other flashy toy. But at the end of the day, when you go home, and really what matters in the grand scheme of life is like, how are you being a good pastor, and are you fulfilling the Great Commission of reaching people? And so pastor first. That's my tech takeaway. I know it's not tech, but as a tech leader, that's what your main responsibility should be.
Toby, you think maybe you can start doing some pastoring around here?
Why do you think I hired Brian?
Thank you. Toby outsources all of his love and affection.
Hey, you know what? That's good self-awareness. You know where your gap is, and you filled it with somebody else.
That way, Blake, I can fire you, and then Brian can put his arm around you and be like, look, Blake, let's just give Toby a moment. We'll feed him a couple tacos. You'll get your job back. You'll be okay.
And you still won't get any salary, but hey, you'll be okay. All right. Well, Caleb, is there anything you want to plug, man? Anything you want to point people towards besides not your Furman switcher?
Yeah, don't kick a Furman with your toes. That's a great one. Second, check out Life Church Open. Most churches already know about this, but if you don't know about it, Life Church Open, everything that Life Church gives away or creates from a creative side is free, all the way down to like our building plans. So anything and everything that we have on there, when we had our virtual church, it was there. Life Church Open's great.
Church of the Highlands does something like that too. I gotta say, if you want to be an amazing church, like all the amazing, successful churches, when their techs come on here, they tell us stuff like this. Like, let's be the big capital C church. I love hearing that. That's great.
Yeah. At Life Church, we lead the way with irrational generosity. And so it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. And so we're like, wait, why wouldn't we do that with everything that we create? Like, it's for the kingdom, it's for impact. And so that's one thing that predates me at the church, but we're huge about. Also, Life Church internships. We're always offering new things. I've had 5 different interns over the years now.
Did all of them get COVID?
Not all of them.
That's why he's burning through them.
Oh my gosh! But it's a maximum of 6 months for an internship, but every single one of them has gone on to do something else significant in the production world. And while we don't have an opportunity most of the time, like 99% of the time for a staff role at the end of it, we do help you find like, hey, here's another great production company or a great location or whatever it may be to connect with, partner with, and continue on from there. So both of those things, I know they're both Life Church things, but
no, that's great. That's what people plug their things here. Well, Caleb, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Hey listeners, we're introducing a segment called Church Tech Confessionals. This is a time for any church tech to anonymously confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, we're doing baptisms, set up for a great Sunday, and we wanted to warm up the baptismal. So we put an immersion heater in there, and our facilities guy let our admin person know that when it gets up to temperature, just pull the immersion heater out, we'll unplug it, pull it out, put the lid on, we're good to go. So she did just that, and then later that day, the facilities guy called his wife, who also works at the church, to go check on something on the heater. So she goes in there, realizes it's unplugged, so she plugs it in, trying to be helpful, and about 5 minutes later, I come around the corner, and the immersion heater is in flames, melting its way through the side of the baptismal. And yeah, I'm confessing this on her behalf because, why not?
Hey, if you have your own 3 to 5 minute church tech confessional, record it and send it to podcast@churchgear.com. And don't worry, we'll apply a voice changer and you'll be 100% anonymous. Your pastor will never know.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, let's do an outro. What we're going to do is we're going to have a battle of the bands.
Okay.
You can either be Ocular Damage or Grandma Takes a Dump.
Grandma Takes a Dump.
Man, I figured you were going to do that, so I'm going to have to be just a better band or blind everyone with lights, because, I feel like Grandma Takes a Dump would just, automatically get the attention.
Yeah, and you should text someone and say, hey, Grandma took a dump on this episode, and then put this episode link and be like, hey, you should listen to how Grandma took a dump on the Church Gear podcast.
I think I have to go to the bathroom.